SOLIDWORKS provides tools which allow you to reuse existing geometry in the model as the basis for new geometry in a sketch. In this lesson, I'll go over the Offset Entities and Convert Entities sketch tools. Offset Entities creates sketch geometry and offsets it from the selected entities by a distance you specify. Convert Entities create sketch geometry by projecting it onto the active sketch plane with relations that ensure the geometry created with Convert Entities will always be congruent with the entities you selected. Both of these tools allow you to leverage existing geometry in the model, such as sketch entities, model edges, or loops, which means that if the original geometry changes, then the new geometry will automatically update to reflect those changes. The Offset Entities sketch tool allows you to select existing geometry and then offset it by a given distance. To get started, I'll activate the Offset Entities sketch tool from the Sketch toolbar. Before I cover the options in the Property Manager, I'll select the geometry I'd like to offset. I can hold down the left mouse button as I click and drag a sketch entity, or I can click a sketch entity and specify the offset distance in the Offset Distance field of the Property Manager. I'll type in 10 millimeters. If I click on a sketch entity again, you can see that the offset is removed from the preview. If you have a chain of contiguous sketch entities, you can offset them all at once with the Select Chain option in the Property Manager. I'll check this option and select any of the sketch entities. To reverse the direction of the offset, you can use the Reverse checkbox. To create an offset on both sides of the selected entities, you can use the Bidirectional checkbox. When I select this option, notice the Reverse checkbox is disabled, and the Cap Ends option becomes available. You can choose to cap the ends using lines or arcs. You can also choose to convert the original sketch entities into construction geometry with the Make Base Construction option. Construction geometry is used only to assist in creating sketch entities, such as the bidirectional offset, and is ignored when the sketch is used to create a feature. I'll go ahead and check this option. Before I finish creating the offset, I'll also point out that the Add Dimensions option is selected. When I click OK, you can see that the dimensions were added. If you decide later that you want to change the offset distance, all you have to do is edit this value. I'll edit this value to 20 millimeters, and the sketch updates. Let's go through one more quick example of using offset entities. In this lamp base, I want to create a shallow cutout that follows the same contour as the outer edge so that the cut is always 1 millimeter from the outer edge. I'll use the Offset Entities tool to do this. I'll create a new sketch on this face. Next, I'll bring up the Shortcut menu by pressing the S key on the keyboard and click Offset Entities. As you saw earlier, you can select individual entities or use the Select Chain option to select multiple entities all at once. You can also select a face, and all of the edges associated with that face will be offset and converted into sketch entities. I'll make sure the offset direction is going to the inside by clicking the Reverse option in the Property Manager, and I'll type in a value of 1 millimeter for the offset distance. I'll click OK, and now the sketch can be used to create the cutout I mentioned a moment ago. I'll go ahead and enable the Extruded Cut command from the Features Command Manager, set the depth to 1 millimeter, and click the green check to add the feature. Now that you have an understanding of the Offset Entities tool, I'll switch over to a different part to show you how to use Convert Entities. Convert Entities lets you take advantage of existing geometry by making a copy of it in the sketch you're working on. This is extremely useful because the copied geometry will automatically update if changes are made to the original geometry. In cases where the geometry that you'd like to copy doesn't lie in the same plane, SOLIDWORKS will project the geometry into the sketch plane you're working in. To demonstrate how this works, I'll be creating a sketch on the other end face of the model, and I'll use Convert Entities to copy the whole shape. This is the workflow I'm using since using a through all end condition would cut through other geometry in the model. I'll undo the change I just made. I'll start a new sketch on this face, and I'll keep the view rotated so you can see the effect of the Convert Entities tool. I'll go ahead and launch it from the Sketch toolbar. The Convert Entities Property Manager simply contains a selection window, a Select Chain option, which works the same as the Select Chain option in Offset Entities, and the Inner Loops 1x1 option, which can convert all of the internal loops of a selection at once into the new sketch. Since I want all of the whole copied over, which are all internal loops, I'll select the face and click on the Select All Inner Loops button that becomes available. This automatically selected all 4 holes and added them in the selection window. When I click OK, you can see that the geometry was projected onto my current 2D sketch plane and is fully defined. I'll quickly create the holes going through the part. I'll enable the Extruded Cut command, set the end condition to Up to Next, and click the green check. But why is the sketch fully defined? Well, if I edit the sketch, you can see that the Convert Entities Sketch tool automatically adds a relation to each entity in the sketch called an on-edge relation. This means that if the original geometry changes, this geometry will automatically update. Let me show you. I'll exit out of the sketch, and I'll edit the original part geometry. You can see right away that the sketch I created using Convert Entities automatically updates to reflect the changes. If I were to use this sketch for a Cut Extrude feature, I can be sure that the cutout would always be the perfect shape due to using Convert Entities and the on-edge relations that were added. Let me switch over to one more part to go through another quick example of using Convert Entities. Here I'd like to edit this part to have the small tabs on both sides of the part extend up to the top surface. To do this, I'll go ahead and create a new sketch. I'll bring up the shortcut menu again by pressing the S key on the keyboard, and I'll click the Convert Entities icon. The Property Manager appears. Just as with the previous example, I'll select the face on this side so that all of the edges associated with the face are converted. On this other side, I'll instead right-click one of the edges, and I want you to notice the option Select Loop. When I click it, a preview of loop geometry appears along with an arrow. This arrow allows you to select the direction for the loop. Keep in mind that when using Convert Entities, the geometry you select cannot be perpendicular to the sketch plane you're working in if you want SOLIDWORKS to project it into a 2D sketch. With the loop going in the correct direction, I'll click OK, and the entities were added into the current sketch. Just as with the previous example, on-edge relations were added to the sketch, which means that if the original geometry were to ever change, the new sketch would update automatically. With the sketch created, I'll create a simple extrude feature with an up-to-surface end condition, and you can see that it matches the original geometry perfectly.